Well, a warm welcome to today's talk, Tuesday the 17th of February. Now in the UK we've just extended the vaccination rollout to 5 to 11-year-olds, or it's just been authorised, and that will be getting rolled out fairly soon. Is this a good idea? So much natural immunity at the moment. Should we be relying on natural immunity, or should we be vaccinating at this younger age group? Some pretty interesting questions. Now, this has been debated in the UK for a long time, and to be fair, this is the press release here just from the Joint Committee of Vaccination and Immunisation, and some people might say they've been dragging their heels on this. They've certainly had it for ages. It seems to have been politically stimulated to some extent, so Nicola Sturgeon in Scotland and Mark Drayford in Wales seem to want this, whereas Boris Johnson in England was less keen. I do hope this isn't becoming politicised. I really hope that is not the case. But we'll be looking at it objectively as much as we can, as we usually do. So that's the press release. Let's look at what we're talking about here. So now, 22nd of December, by way of background, the JCVI, the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation, Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation, that's it. It recommended vaccines, COVID vaccines, of course, to be offered to at-risk 5 to 11-year-olds, which is sort of more understandable, really. The rollout of which officially began at the beginning of February, so a couple of weeks back, so it's pretty new. But now this is being extended to potentially 5 million healthy children. 5 million healthy children this is being extended to. And according to this website here, the JCVI themselves, they say this: although this age group is generally at very low risk of serious illness from the virus, very low risk of serious illness, a very small number of children, again, so a very small number of children they're talking about, who get infected do develop severe disease, and we know it is a very small number. Latest evidence suggests that offering the vaccine ahead of another potential wave will protect this very small number of children from serious illness and hospitalisation. So this seems to be aimed at protecting a very small minority against a minority disease in a potential future wave. I get the impression that they're not making the case as strongly as I would like so far, but let's carry on. So we're talking about a potential future wave here. Will there be a future wave? Well, of course, no one knows this. But with Omicron, we're getting high levels of immunity as we speak, and it's increasing hour by hour. And they also say this will provide some short-term protection against mild infections across the age groups. So why you would want to vaccinate to provide mild short-term protection against mild infection, quite why you would want to do that, I'm not too sure. But anyway, they seem to be worried about a potential future wave. So the committee's therefore advised a non-urgent, so they're saying it's non-urgent. What does that mean exactly? Well, hard to say. It's non-urgent. Call to 5 to 11-year-olds to give the paediatric dose, the 10 microgram dose. It's the Pfizer vaccine, the paediatric vaccine. The two doses should be given at least 12 weeks apart between doses. Now, this is a really important point. In Europe and the United States, certainly in the United States, the time gap is way too small. So in the United States, in my view, they're doing two things significantly wrong with the vaccination programme. One is they're not aspirating the needles, giving rise to the potential of inadvertent intravascular administration. And the second is they're simply giving the doses too close together. So is this just me saying this, or does this come from a website like this, where a lot of detail is given from the UK government? And it's a bit like a paper, this. It's all got references in and things, so there's all the references there. So quite a thorough document is saying this, and let's look at what they're saying. So they're saying... international data from adult programmes, so this is from adult programmes, a longer interval between doses, greater than the 3 to 4 weeks scheduled usually in the United States, is associated with a lower reported rate of myocarditis following vaccination. Now, I would have thought we want the rate of myocarditis to be as low as possible. Of course, we wouldn't want any at all, but given that there is some myocarditis after mRNA vaccines, international data is showing that the risk of that is somewhat reduced. if the doses are given further apart. So why are the United States giving the doses so close together? This association expected also apply to the paediatric dose formulation when used in children, so it's likely to occur. So an important point there, giving the vaccines close together is probably, I think we could say that, probably increasing the incidence of myocarditis following vaccinations. And that trend is likely. So in other words, what this is saying is we should get less cases of myocarditis in children following vaccination if we give the vaccine a longer period of time apart. And as we've said, it should be at least 12 weeks between doses, at least 12 weeks between doses. And of course, we also know from Professor Niels Høiby in Denmark that in Denmark they get a third as many cases of myocarditis as they do in Norway, because he's introduced needle aspiration in Denmark. But of course, that's still being ignored by the authorities on both sides of the Atlantic. So why the United States doesn't change to widen the gap, I have no idea. The evidence is against them. Can the CDC and the FDA claim to be evidence-based in this? I'll leave you to decide that. We need to follow the evidence wherever it leads. That was one of our sayings, wasn't it? Follow the evidence wherever it leads. If the evidence is saying, if you don't like it, then tough. The evidence is the evidence. This is the whole point of science. Professor Lim, chair of the COVID-19 JCVI in the UK, the main purpose of offering vaccines to 5 to 11-year-olds is to increase their protection against severe illness in advance of a potential future wave. Okay, so it's in advance of a potential future wave of COVID-19. Now, when will this potential future wave come, I wonder? I'd love to have Professor Lim on if she wants to come and talk about this. But to me, it would really seem, if she's worried about a future potential wave, that we know that giving vaccination now, that protection is going to gradually wane over the next few months. So if this potential wave hits us like a tsunami in March or April, then there probably will be some benefit from this. But there's no intimation that it will, and I don't think it will, because Omicron's providing such high levels of protection. So if there is a future wave next November, December, the vaccine we give now is going to be pretty well useless against that. Surely it would be better, when we know what the risks are against a new potential wave, when that starts coming along, to roll the vaccines out quickly at that stage. To do it now against something which may or may not happen doesn't sound any way to run national policy to me, to be quite honest. A potential future wave, and this is a direct quote from the site. The Department of Health and Social Care and the NHS England will advise on their plans for rollout. So this hasn't been rolled out yet, and to be quite honest, I can't imagine the NHS is going to be chomping at the bit to get this started. But we'll see. Professor Paul Hunter, friend of the programme, of course, this video, of course, I would lean against offering to this age group for a number of reasons. So we would lean against it. There are actually, the cases are actually falling now at the moment, so cases are falling now as herd immunity increases. We're seeing fewer than half the cases in this age group than we saw a little more than a week ago, so cases down by almost 50% in the week. And given that this vaccine rollout won't start till April, so if cases continue to fall throughout February and March, will there be any cases left to vaccinate against in April? Just in case there's a future wave. It's I don't know if they've just done a bad PR job here or what, or if I've misunderstood the science, but the scientific basis for this really does seem pretty tentative as described here, I must say. A very small minority of a potential future wave. Paul Hunter again. The only reason we're giving is to hopefully protect them against disruption to schooling. Well, you know, if you're off school for a few days, it's hardly the end of the world, is it? And we haven't seen that the vaccine has done a huge amount to stop those interruptions, because, of course, Omicron is spreading amongst those that are vaccinated. I'm sure the members of the JCVI realise that Omicron is spreading amongst the vaccinated. But to be quite honest, when you read their statements, that's not particularly clear on their statements. It would be nice if that was expressed more clearly. Hope I'm just not in a cynical mood today. But even Mr. Javid, Sajid Javid, Secretary of State for Health, NHS were prepared to extend this non-urgent offer to all children during April, so it's not going to come till April. So it's another, 6 weeks minimum till it starts, 7 weeks till it starts. And by that time, the numbers are going to be remarkably low, unless I am phenomenally wrong. So parents can, if they want, so he's kind of saying it twice, can, and if they want, take up the offer to increase protection against potential future waves of COVID-19. But of course, by the time this future wave comes around, immunity will already have declined. So really a pretty unconvincing statement from Mr. Javid. This is more information from this group here that we've just been looking at. They go on to say this. Again, direct quote from their site. This is a direct quote from this more detailed explanatory site here from the JCVI. And they go on quite a bit about it. But they do give evidence. It's a good write-up. What they do cover is good. It's estimated that over 85% of all children aged 5 to 11 will have had prior COVID-19 infection by the end of January. And of course, we're now 2 or 3 weeks after that, and as we know, cases have been very high, with roughly half of these infections being due to the Omicron variant. So we haven't really seen Omicron cause massive threat to life in our children over the past few weeks, we are pleased to say. Natural immunity arising from prior infection will contribute towards protection against the future infection and severe disease. So that's good. At least they're saying natural immunity arising from prior infection will contribute. Well, hopefully it'll do slightly more contribute. Okay, that's true. Scientifically, that word is true. It will contribute towards the protection against future infection and severe disease, not least because it will cause long-term, we believe it will cause long-term activation of the B and the T memory cells, which we believe could hang around for years, other than the antibodies, which are only going to hang around for months. Use of Pfizer-BioNTech 10 microgram paediatric formulation vaccine should be encouraged for all pupils in the relevant academic years, children aged 11 to 7. 11 to 12. Okay, so let's leave that bit out there. So we'll take that bit there as a given. Direct quote from them, of course. But why is this being advised in the 11 to 12-year-old age groups? To reduce complexity in programme delivery. So the reason that they're extending this for all pupils is to make it easier to give out, to reduce complexity in programme delivery. And I would have thought that medicine should be individualised, not designed to make it easier to treat millions of people all at the same time. So to reduce complexity in programme delivery and expected reactogenic events for individuals. Now this, to me, this is a direct, the reason I put this out in full is it's a direct quote. And I put it out there because I don't understand it. So to reduce complexity in programme delivery, I understand. But what does this bit mean? And expected reactogenic events for individuals. So this is the way that people react. So what are they saying there? It really just isn't English to me. Are they saying there'll be less reaction events to future potential viral infection if children are given this vaccine? Really pretty. I don't know what that means. Disappointing that. I mean, to be fair, I'm a bit dyslexic, so it's probably just me being a bit thick here, but I don't see what that means. And expected reactogenic events for individuals. So they're giving it to all pupils in order to reduce reactogenic events. That's what they say. I don't understand it. Then they say, this advice on the offer of vaccine for 5 to 11-year-olds who are not at clinical risk group and is considered by the JCVI as a one-off pandemic response. So the 5 to 11-year-olds, in their great enthusiasm or lack of thereof, they are saying it's a one-off pandemic response. But I don't think we're in a pandemic at the moment. I think we're in an endemic. I think we're pretty well endemic now. As the COVID-19 pandemic moves further forward to endemicity in the UK. So they agree it's moving towards endemicity, which is good. And they're going to review it further if it's going to be needed more. So even they're kind of almost backpedaling a bit, saying, well, this is just a one-off. So politicians and authorising bodies are approving this, but it has to be said not with great gusto as I'm reading it. As I say, unless I'm misinterpreting, that's why I put all the links in so you can get it right. Now, moving on to the latest thing for the Office for National Statistics. This is great, this site. Mostly clear, not entirely. But so I've been looking at the antibody bit here for natural immunity, but you can look at infections, or you can look at anything. It's absolutely brilliant. Infections still pretty high. Look, 1 in 20 people in England in the week ending the 12th of February are still in an Omicron wave, that's for sure. Thankfully, hospitalisations going down. So what they're saying about antibodies? Well, let's just look at some of the data on antibodies. 10th of January to the 17th of January, antibodies. Children aged 12 to 15, in that age group, 90 to 93% have already got antibodies. Pretty high. And we believe this is from the proper blood test taken during the national survey as well, although that point isn't entirely clear. When you read the ONS website, it's not entirely clear whether they're talking about their school study or their national study. I'm pretty sure this is from the national study. And here we see the antibody positivity is higher and data sources. So this one here is that's the ONS survey there. So we see increasing levels of antibodies over 2021. Interesting that's vaguely, well, not vaguely, but very tightly correlated with the REACT study from Imperial College, and also the UK Health Security Agency Sero surveillance programme from NH Blood and transplant collection. So basically we see that all three ways of gathering this data are in accord, and that shows it's very likely to be correct data. That means we can be pretty sure that we are at... Now remember, that is the 100% line there. So are we just a tad below 100%, 98% of people with antibodies already in the UK? So pretty convincing and reassuring. 16 to 24-year-olds, well, 98% have antibodies. 35.7% of those have had 3 vaccine doses. But the antibody levels are high. Now, some of this might be attributable to the first and second dose of vaccine, but a lot's attributable to natural immunity. Now, this group, of course, the 8 to 11-year-olds, we have not been vaccinating, so all of this we can guarantee is due to natural exposure, natural immunity. And as we saw, it's expected to be 85% pretty soon. So high levels of immunity. Now, of course, this is a minimum figure for reasons we'll see in a minute. Age 12 to 15, it's higher. Now, some of those have had 2 doses of vaccine. That represents 2 doses. Some of those have had 1 dose of vaccine. And that represents the total amount of immunity. For England, older people, this is for older people, 98.1% antibodies, and they're the numbers that have had 3 doses of vaccine. But of course, these antibody figures are absolute minimum levels of immunity, as we'll see. Let me give you some more information first. So children aged 8 to 11, 63 to 72% have antibodies. At or above the 42 nanograms per mil level, because there's 1,000 nanograms in a microgram, there's 1,000 micrograms in a milligram, there's 1,000 milligrams in a gram, and there's 1,000 grams in a kilo. So anyway, that's the 42 nanogram level. So if it's below than that, it won't pick up. It won't pick up. So quite a few children tested, will have antibodies just below that level. So it won't have picked up. And of course, ONS is quite upfront about this, of course. Antibody concentration in nanograms per milliliter. And these are measuring immunoglobulin type Gs, based on SARS coronavirus 2 trimeric spike protein. Now, the thing I'm unclear about at the moment, and this is a bit of a learning exercise, I've actually written to Paul Hunter to clarify this for me. I'm not sure if the trimeric spike protein is produced by natural infection or natural infection and vaccination. So the question as to whether vaccination generates trimeric spike protein is actually unclear. If it doesn't, the levels of natural immunity are much higher and much better than we would have thought. Now, Office for National Statistics says this: a negative antibody test does not mean that a person is not protected. Quite correct. A person may have tested positive for antibodies at one time but then have a negative test later on. Direct quote. And of course, the antibodies could go down, but the B and T cells can still be there giving immunity. Antibody threshold levels and measurements, just to give nearly finished, but give a little bit of more detail on this. Pretty interesting. Our standard threshold uses an antibody positivity estimates of 42 nanograms per mil. In other words, if it's 40 nanograms, it won't pick it up. It won't pick it up. And we know that antibody levels wane pretty quickly. Therefore, threshold that the test is CE approved, so European certification approved, as approved by the Medicines Healthcare Regulatory Authority. In other words, this figure is the 42 nanograms per mil figure is chosen not because they like the sound of that number or they think it's clinically useful, but because it's a threshold for the test. In other words, it's the art of the possible. And of course, that's reasonable. We can only do what we can do. So the reason they picked that threshold level is because that's what the test does. So people with 32 nanograms per mil of antibodies, they will have been exposed. If they're below the age of vaccination, they've definitely been exposed. But that's not picked up by the test because antibody levels wane. Anyway, the test is 99% sensitivity and specificity, which is good, in identifying people who have had a coronavirus COVID-19 infection before natural immunity from people who have had not. So they're saying here that this is differentiating between natural immunity and people who haven't had it. So it looks like that trimeric spike protein that we were talking about is only generated by natural immunity. That's what that seems to be saying. Now, I am hoping to. I'm going to get clarification on this soon because it's not clear at the moment. Hopefully, Paul Hunter will answer the question and we'll have it unambiguously. But if it is that this is only testing for natural immunity, then it means those figures we looked at for antibody thresholds are much more encouraging than we thought. So clarification needed on that, but it's either good or much better. The standard threshold of 42 nanograms per mil corresponds to 23 binding antibody units per mil. So what these are, these are the antibodies. These are immunoglobulin type Gs, and these are molecules, and they're kind of Y-shaped like this. They've got a body and they've got two arms like that. They've literally got two arms, and in the end of the arm there's a very specific shape like that, which is the reciprocal shape of the antigen. Because remember, this is the antibody, and the antibody is the body's response to the antigen. So these are, so presumably if there's 23 per mil of blood, that means there's 23 of these per mil of blood. These are units. And the thing about this bit on the end is called the multivariable unit. So this bit's the same in most antibodies. It's this bit here that varies, and it's that bit there which is designed to be the reciprocal shape of the antigen, in this case, part of the SARS coronavirus 2 virus. And it fits onto it like that. So if we were drawing this more to scale, here we'd have a virus like that. So that would be the virus like that. And the antibody, and here we've got various antigens, such as spike proteins. Well, we could draw the full spike, I suppose. It'd be like, so that's the antigen on the end of it there, like that. There's other antigens there, of course, but these are the ones on the spike proteins. So there's particular antigens on there, and what these antibodies do, they will recognise that, and they will bind onto these specific shapes like this. So you'll end up with an antibody there like that, binding onto it. Like that, and if it's bound onto it, that means that that's actually fixed onto there. So that means instead of being this shape like that, instead of being that shape, the spike protein, instead of being that shape there that we've coloured in, it actually becomes this shape here. It becomes this shape in. Of course, that means it can't fit into the ACE2 receptor site anymore. So it essentially changes the shape. That's how the neutralisation works. So you come to the receptor that this would like to fit into, like this. And whereas that would fit into it nicely, this won't because it's the wrong shape. That's the principle of neutralising antibodies. And the IgG ones, of course, are the more longer-lived ones. The IgM ones are produced first. They're immediate, and then the IgG ones are produced. But even these only last for a few months. So there we go. Vaccine to under 5s is being rolled out in the UK, but has to be said with no greater enthusiasm as far as I read the information. So that's all I wanted to talk about today, unless you're an academic. Now, if you're an academic, I just want to show you something briefly. Now, this is from Wafafa in Africa, and he's been doing this survey with some of his colleagues, and it's a questionnaire for community diagnosis, and they're collecting information on lots of different things. So background information there, childhood, death, stillbirth, sickness of the mother during pregnancy, poor feeding, malnutrition, diseases. Do you have any nutritional deficiencies in childhood, kwashiorkor, marasmus, failure to thrive? Kwashiorkor is particularly protein deficiency, of course. Marasmus is typically carbohydrate energy deficiency. These days we tend to call it protein energy malnutrition, but anyway. Do you have any children or babies with congenital abnormalities? What are the common causes of death at home, if any? Do you sleep under a treated insecticide mosquito net? Do you brush your teeth? Do you use a brush to brush your teeth? What's the main source of water for your home? Do you boil your water for drinking? What is your source of food? And it goes on. How many meals do you have a day? Do your children eat in the same plate, plate from the same plate as adults? How do you prepare your food? Do you have a drying rack for utensils? All sorts of things that. Do you have a pit latrine toilet? Do you have hand washing facilities near your pit latrine? Of course, many don't, causing fecal oil transmission. So, when washing your hands, have you ever gone to school? What's the highest educational level you attained? How far is the nearest school from you? What do you do for a living? Most common diseases you suffer from. On quite a lot of data there, all directly related to health, and it goes on to pregnancy and childbirth. Family planning and contraception. Religion, do you have any cultural or religious beliefs that could impact on health? Lots of things. So the reason I've put this on here is Wafafa's collected this data from quite a few people now, but what he's looking for is an academic partner from any university really, preferably a Western university, to help him collect and analyse this data and convert it into papers. So he's collected loads and loads of data. He's still collecting loads of more data, and if there was some interest and to be quite honest, some minimal funding, we could collect loads and loads of data and really get a handle on what is causing pain, suffering, death and disease in these poor African communities. Now, I haven't got the time or capacity to take this on at the moment. It's a huge, it's a big academic work, so it would make a brilliant master's project. It would make a brilliant PhD thesis. And it would also be remarkably good for academics because there's so much raw data there which could be rapidly converted into papers. And of course, Western universities need to publish lots and lots of papers. So if you're an academic, I'll put the link for Wafafa in the title. If you're interested in this partnership, you could contact me, or contact Wafafa directly, and let's start gathering data which will inform us better how to improve health in rural communities, and that would be well worth doing, wouldn't it? So any interested academics would make an excellent MD thesis as well, medical doctor thesis. It's a bit different in the United States. MD is anyone who's a doctor, whereas an MD in the UK is actually a doctorate. It's a higher order doctoral degree. So it would make a good MD postgraduate medical degree as well for anyone interested in that. So, or academic supervisors, you got the message. Lots of data there just waiting to be wrung out to get proper information that's really going to help people's lives, which is what we're into. Thank you for watching.